Cross the river with a barge man, trusted his rusty horse, and his eyes are heroes unspoken.
Welcome everybody to Being Heard. We're so thrilled that you're here. Today's conversation is with our very first special guest, and we knew that we had to include this conversation as quick as possible. It's with Dr. Sue Morter. And this conversation was born out of a conversation she had with us for the Embodied Voice Summit, a once-a-year summit we put on. And some of those conversations were so good, so relevant to what it means to fall into trust and welcome yourself home into the whole body instrument. So good and so informative that we wanted to include them immediately in Being Heard. So today we speak with Dr. Sue Morter. Dr. Sue leads us through not only her life story and what awakened in her to give birth to this incredible work she's doing in the world, but she leads us through an experience of returning to the instrument in the ways that she guides. So without further ado, please welcome Dr. Sue Morter.
Hello, you've reached the Corin family, but we're not home right now. So if you'd like, leave a message. Use your voice right now.
Well, welcome everyone. Today's guest is truly special to us. A deep love and true respect that we have for this guest. Dr. Sue Morter is a renowned international speaker, master of bioenergetic medicine, and a pioneer in quantum field exploration. Leveraging high-frequency energy patterns, she unlocks the complete spectrum of human potential. With over 3 decades of clinical expertise and a transformative awakening during meditation, Dr. Sue has developed visionary models and techniques redefining living in a creative genius and personal freedom. As the #1 LA Times and USA Today best-selling author of The Energy Codes, 7-step system to awaken your spirit, heal your body, and live your best life, Dr. Sue shares profound insights on activating untapped energy and neurocircuitry within the body for healing and living into our full capacity. Her mission is to empower individuals to embrace their hidden potential and manifest their true essential selves. Welcome, Dr. Sue, to this conversation with us. You're grateful brothers.
It is always so good to be with you guys. So it's like a love fest right off the bat. So it's a joy to be here. I so look forward to seeing where we get to go with our conversation and hopefully helping lots of people find a deeper meaning and a deeper version of themselves.
Thank you, Sue. Thank you. And thank you. I know one place that we connect immediately is embodiment. Is what does it mean? All this work you've done about activating the healer within the instrument itself, and so we're excited to jam with you there. It's amazing what is happening now in the world that people are remembering. It feels like a remembering that there's something right here, this natural life intelligence waiting for us to not just re-embody to, but to be back in communion with. But take us into that early stage. I know that you had such an amazing awakening during a meditation. We'd love to hear the root of how this unfolded for you and gave birth to this emergent work you're up to in the world. How did it all begin?
Oh, certainly. First of all, I was raised in an energy medicine environment. My father was a pioneer in the realm of energy medicine. And so quantum science was our dinner table conversation. It was, the body is a reflection of your consciousness, and that our thoughts, generate our reality, and our way of thinking generates our life experience. And so that, I came upon that pretty honestly. It was like, I was born into it. And I also know that I chose wisely when I selected my landing pad of my family because of their interest in these types of things. And so I feel very, very blessed there to have grown up with it. And even growing up with it, I had a challenging time integrating some of the information that I knew, some of the conversations that we were having, which was, extraordinary conversation. And so as I went to school and became a doctor and opened a clinic, I could share all this information with people, and they could take some of that, and their lives would change, or they would heal. And as I was working along the way, and I also started to notice that I started getting headaches. I was getting migraine headaches to the point that I was missing work, 1 or 2 days a week at its pinnacle for months. This was happening, and when I was feeling okay, I could go to the clinic and help other people with their migraine headaches and anything else that was coming along. But here I was, having this happened for me. It was debilitating, in the dark room, close the doors, close the windows, all of that. Oof. So I sought out meditation as an attempt to try to ease that pain, and also just kind of as a stress, thinking that they were stress related. So I went to a meditation retreat to begin this process. And I instantly started having transcendental experiences, multidimensional openings it was like the doors flew open with my consciousness. And I had no idea that was an option, that was likely to happen. And I didn't have anyone really to share it with or to ask about. And so it was a transformative reality instantly. And I had an experience right away, like the third time that I sat down into a meditation, and was exalted into a higher state of consciousness. I was above the earth to the point that the earth was about the size of a marble below me, and I was a ray of light. I was me, but I was not in a physical body. I was a ray of light, and I could see spherically around me in every direction. And I was in a light so brilliantly bright, it was 10 times brighter than the brightest day in the desert that I had ever seen. But I wasn't trying to get away from it. I was part of it. I was it. And every time I took a breath, this beautiful pink horizon, this iridescent, translucent light would rise on my inhale and lower on my exhale. And it would just rise up on the inhale and lower on the exhale. And I looked around, and I knew that what was happening was this light was becoming a different vibration as it was passing through my system. That light was actually becoming love, and it was being breathed to this planet, to this earthly space beneath me. And I knew that the me that was there wasn't the whole of me, because this was, in this exalted state. I had always been there. There was nothing to do, nothing to accomplish, nothing to achieve. I was wholly whole. I was completely complete. And it was, to say the least, it was life changing, because I knew that this was the truth of who we all are, that we are truly these emanations of this light source. And the degree to which we allow this love, this light to pass through us will determine the amount of love that we experience in this project that we're on here on Earth, which is, this project of expanding consciousness. And so, so it changed me forever. I started, trying to figure out what on earth happened there. Because I didn't have a context for it. It wasn't something I was striving to achieve. It was just upon me. And I think that was actually an integral part of the recipe, that I wasn't trying to achieve something. It just happened. And because I know that if I would have known that this could happen, that I would have gotten busy trying to make it happen. And that would never work, right? That doesn't work. So I was very blessed to just stumble into this awakening to a greater truth of who we are and what we're doing here. And so my life then, with my clinics and the patients that would come, and then the classes that I would teach, became about illuminating this version of who we are, and finding ways to integrate that and to infuse the circuitry within our system, within our electromagnetic energy system, and within our nervous system, infusing the circuitry to be able to translate that information in a way that is livable, that is lucid, and defining our come from. So it became about embodiment. And lastly, I'll just say that, people seek enlightenment, or they seek, the answers and the mysteries and the secret behind the secret, and all of this. And the interesting thing for me has been that I stopped seeking the instant this happened, because I recognized that what we're seeking is who we are. And so the reason people can't find it is because they are what's looking. They are what the answer is, what's looking for the answer. It's behind the eyes. And so
Yeah.
And so in all of that, what has come to be the most meaningful thing for me is to teach people that they are the light, and their project was to come into body form here in the physical dimension. Of all the places we could be right now, we've decided to come to the physical dimension. So our physical selves have a lot to do with why we're here. And so it's about embodiment, not so much as enlightenment, that we are the light that is here to embody. And by doing so, we get to experience ourselves as the light that the mind has been seeking. So I'll leave it at that. That's kind of how it started. And it's been a while for the last 24 years since then, and a lot of fun. Definitely a lot of fulfillment.
What a root, what an origination, and how magical. You know, as you were describing it, I've always had like a nerdy fascination with near-death experiences, hearing stories, especially from the most like maybe practical or like atheist-minded person. And yeah, there's great ones on YouTube. But it reminded me that, you know, what you had was a near life or a real life experience, right? It was not near death, where you found this through the doorway of a meditation. It's the same place in so many ways that it feels described. And I just, you know, where we would love to talk about is, and you answered it in the way in which you've brought back what you discovered, right? And looked at how to integrate that magic back into the system itself. What this system that we call the whole body instrument, that it is this beautiful container we've been each given, right? To interface with life for this finite period of time, to like a receiver, right? Of this spectrum you speak to. And I think that's just expression in and of itself, with the melody or without. You know, what you're teaching is voice, and life instrument itself too. It's such a beautiful thing. It's so beautiful to hear about.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that story. I'm curious. There was light. Was there a sound associated with this experience, or was it?
There was a sound that was as if. So I'm in this exalted state, and in that moment, time collapses. So beginning, the middle, and the end don't exist. Those concepts aren't part of what exists in this true state. And in that, I was also able to perceive the moment that I chose to become. Okay. So we are the unified field, and we are compressed into these body forms. And that's how what we are animating as right now. And I had lucid memory of the moment that I chose to become an individuation of the whole. And it was as if words were spoken. The words were, yes, I am. And it caused this monumental, this mountainous, these walls of energy that were coming from every direction in this massive way. It was like some Indiana Jones movie where, you know, he's running down the tunnel, and this big ball is rolling after him. And it's, you know, the sound and the vibration, the intensity of all of this was there. It was thunderous and kind of cataclysmic, if you will, but in a beautiful way, not to be avoided by any means. And it was as if, yes, I am was spoken. And so it wasn't the words, it wasn't the syllables, the way that we would say it in a given language. It was as if that had been said in a reverberating sense through all of beingness. It was happening. And I was part of that. I was that. And then I was descending and descending and descending and descending, falling down like what it would be like in an elevator shaft if the elevator, you know, gave out, and it was just going on and on and on. And I landed at the bottom just like this, in the womb. I was the embryo in the womb at that point. I was there. And so sound vibration was definitely what was carrying me from the formless into form. It was a reverberation. And so, you know, when we tone or when we have these primal sounds that just move through us, the reason we love it, in my experience, is because it takes us right back to that moment where the word is the beginning of existence as an individuation of human consciousness. It is that vibration is how we begin. Long before we're a thought or a twinkle in someone's eye, or, the baby, the baby in the oven, or whatever it is. It starts long before that there is consciousness en route. There is consciousness en route. So
Yes, en route. I love that.
Beautiful. And so from there, what was the impetus, or what was the process between this moment, this awakening, and the next step for you, the energy codes? Or walk us through? Was there a voice? Was there a knowing? What was there for you?
Definitely. I came down out of that, and I looked around the room, and I knew that this thing that we're doing isn't what is reality. This is a project that we're in. It's a movie that we're in. And that reverberation in me became the guiding light of my life. And I had no idea what I was going to do, but I knew that it was going to be different because of, where I had just been, what I had just recognized or realized or remembered. And so I spent the next 5 years really trying to figure out what that was and how could I return to this state, and what was required. And every time I would try to do things to return there, it wouldn't work. And when I would stop trying, I would find myself there. And so it was like this combination of preparation and readiness and devotion, clarity, sincerity, singularly focused mind, and then letting go inside of that. And letting go right inside of all that organization, all that effort, right inside of all of that focus that happens, to just let go and allow this thing to flow through. And so I began to notice that again, I could teach it, I could share it. I was giving my patients options, things to do that were helping them heal faster and stay better longer. But my life didn't change until I recognized I have to get in the body with what I have accessed. I can't just reference it as up there, out there, and over there. I have to become that. And it was a deep knowing, a deep reverberation inside of my system that was saying, Sue, this is it. This is you. Don't other yourself. Don't separate yourself from what you've discovered, what you've experienced already. So don't study it. Be it. Don't talk about it. Become it. Walk it. Talk this version of life. And so over the next 5 years, I began to notice that my perspective was changing. I wasn't talking about spirit or listening to spirit. I was speaking as it often. I was speaking things that were not coming from my educated mind. I was speaking knowings, and the sound of the universe was coming through. I was taking a group one time years later to Egypt. We were speaking about Egypt before we just got started here today. And I was in the King's Chamber of the Great Pyramids with our group, and we were toning and we were moving with the energies and, feeling that sound vibration inside this chamber. And I'm oming, and this woman comes by, tears in her eyes, and says, "The voice of God." And I said, "What?" And she said, "You have the voice of God. I know it. I know it." And so we became connected and spoke back and forth over the years from another part of the planet in a connection that was bonded because of the sound that was just coming through. And you guys know this because it's what you do. When you open your mouths, that's what's happening. You're allowing this continuum that we are to move through this gateway that these bodies are, this instrument, to allow this to move through without interruption. That's our job, is to figure out how to let it come through us without interfering with it, without altering it or distorting it or dispersing it in all the ways that our personality does as it's, trying to make ends meet or belong or fit in or be approved of. And so my life became all about, let's turn that inside out for people. Let's get people on the inside coming out instead of empty on the inside, searching and seeking and trying to receive, but to recognize that we're made of this continuum of divine source. We are that. We don't access source. We allow ourselves to be true without changing who we really are. So I have this little image, if it would be helpful, just to show. I kind of use it sometimes in the classes I'm teaching. I just glanced down and saw this, that actually we are this continuum. So here we are as the unified field, and we begin funneling. It was right here that this yes, I am occurred, and that this is actually who we are. And this begins to funnel, and it begins to channel, and it makes its way all the way to the physical dimension. And so this is us here. And inside of what we do with this gateway, I reference it as a gateway, you reference it as the instrument, because we're talking about the same thing from two different angles. And our job is to let this come through us and project it into the world as this rainbow movie that's really coming through us. And so if people could begin to recognize that we are the whole continuum, then what we get to do is allow the divine or the cosmic or the supernatural, or however we want to reference it, to have its way, and that we don't separate ourselves from that we are that which is doing this thing that we're doing intentionally. We've come to allow that high frequency light to infuse itself into this dimension, into our family situations and into our relationships and into our physicality and all of it. We're here to bring something, but because when we land, we splat, we disperse ourselves. We don't know who we are. Our mind, our body, our breath, they all go different directions. And we're just trying to figure out how to get ourselves together. And
Humpty Dumpty.
As we do, right, as we do put Humpty Dumpty back together again, the system knows what it's doing, and we are that. The universe knows what it's doing, and we are that. We are the universe packed into physical form. That's it.
That is it.
That is beautiful.
So many questions. All right, my first question. It would seem obvious to say that it's clear that one way people get in the way of letting the universe and this high frequency light pass through them and from them, from inside out. Some of the ways we see around voice that people shut themselves down is a gathering of, small, medium, large trauma where they inhibited themselves or were inhibited by others in the world they found themselves in, where they started to consider, how should I say this, put this, how should I be, what looks good, what sounds good, will I be accepted? And people slowly but surely become closed to the infinite channel of source wanting to resource through them, right? What ways do you see people, because looking out in the world right now, I see this massive thirst for people to remember they can allow and you use the word allow, which I'm so grateful to hear, because there's no better word for it. There's never been a greater thirst, I feel, for people wanting to allow that source to come through them, and yet they're struggling with having their fractured instrument, that interface, you called it the system, did you say? Ready to receive. What's shut that system down, and what's some simple ways to allow Humpty to be not just back together again, but in flow, in right time, right place? What does it seem for you? What's that way to be in that? Yoked. I love it.
Great. So I happen to have another picture for that. Okay. All right. So this is a close-up of what's happening right here. Okay, right here. What's happening right there is also referenced if I do a close-up of it like this. So this energy is pouring in, it's hitting the earth, it's rising up, it's cycling around, and then it's projecting out in front of that person, like that rainbow movie we were just seeing. This is how it works. So this toric field flow is measurable. This is, based in science, and what happens here, the bioenergetic flow is this compressed energy from that continuum. Right? Now, here's what most people are doing. Instead of it rising back up in its perfected state and doing its beautiful, perfect thing, it's doing some beautiful, perfect, imperfect thing like this. And so the light comes in, hits the earth, we rise up, and somewhere along the line, we've been shut down in a feeling of safety, or shut down inside of some interactive, relational sort of way. Someone hurt us, betrayed us, whatever, abused us in some way. Or perhaps another, and there are infinite combinations of this, or maybe someone has loved deeply and gotten their heart broken or disillusioned in that way, or they've spoken out and had had something really terrible happen. So they then start to do this thing that you're saying of, how should I say this? How can I make this work and, be accepted and such? So what we have to do is realize that we've shut down. And now that rising energy has to make its way around those potholes in the superhighway, if you will. And so that wobble that the energy takes on creates a distortion in the energy field. Now, this person is standing here looking out through a distorted reality, a distorted lens. So they see reality as if it's not kind, it's not loving, there's no place for me. I don't know my role. I don't know my sole purpose. I don't know passion. I'm not safe to engage because everything looks, wrong. And so this is what happens. Then that distorted feedback comes back onto the body, and it just kind of reverberates. And, it's a deeper conversation about what happens next. But the beautiful thing is, and this is what I teach in the energy codes, is teaching people how to build the bridge through here, that these are shut down, creating gaps in the flow. So we're opening that up. We're coming straight through again instead of, making our way around the circumstances, the traumas, the triggers, those kinds of things that people allow to control their lives. They get to be dissolved, and we actually use those things to go to work, to refine the instrument, to tune the instrument. So we're building circuits in those areas that were gapped so that the energy can flow through them without creating this distorting, unsettling feeling. Because people walk around inside of that distorted, unsettled feeling and they think something's wrong. I don't know what's wrong. Something's wrong. Maybe I need to get another degree, or maybe I need to get a divorce, or maybe I need to quit my job, or maybe I need to get a new partner, or whatever it is. But it's unsettledness that is caused by this wobble in the energy field that is simply seeking to be harmonized. And that's why we came. Yeah. We came to harmonize that. We came to leave human consciousness better than we found it, and to make our contribution in that way by doing our own work, by refining our own instrument. And so the beauty of it all is that life is constantly showing you how to build those circuits, where to build those circuits. If anyone has ever had a knot in their stomach, or lump in their throat, or tightness in their chest, that's what's going on. It's saying right here, you're not living right here. You're not in here. Come in here, because the real you is formless and expansive and loving and warm. So if you're not feeling that way in the middle of this lump in your throat or tightness in your chest, you're not in there. The real you would have it feel differently. So we use the body as an instrument of guidance of how to awaken ourselves and how to allow more of the high frequency energy that we are to pour into this body and fully flourish in all of its crevices, so that we can project a movie out into the world and walk into a movie that is not distorted, one that is not missing anything in it. So that's my big picture.
I love that. I want to just grab onto one thing you said, which we really share with you, is that those distortions, you start by going to those and working from those places, as if not to say that there's something wrong with those or something to fix necessarily, but those places, those distortions are the breadcrumbs to the evolution, to the reharmonizing. And so for us, it's the same. The fears around the voice, or the small voices, we like to call them, the distortions, or the disharmony, is where we like to start from. And how do you call people back to their body? What are some of the ways in which you invite people home to their body?
There's several very simple things to do. First of all, breathing low in the belly is automatically drawing us out of our head and down into the whole fullness of our being. So belly breathing is always going to help. There are also anchor points that I work with, calling people to, just feel this, contract this muscle, squeeze this muscle, hug this area, all at the same time. And you're going to align yourself in that central flow that is here, right in the central, it's like the control center of this whole thing, this whole piece of equipment that is a giant washing machine. And so, we can speak about that if you'd like. And also, I am oftentimes just inviting people to do this. It's an ancient practice that is translated as subject, object, subject. And it's about bringing your essence onto the self instead of being on other. So if someone would imagine that you're sitting in the room that they're sitting in right now, and imagine that someone comes to the doorway of the room that you're sitting in, someone that pushes your buttons, someone that you have a challenge with, someone that something going on with, and they are the embodiment of that. And your energy rushes to them. And your mystical self onto you while you're talking to them, and notice how it feels when you do. The body feels full and grounded and robust and capable, and you're more present. And so I have people practice. Come on to subject, feel how it feels, throw your attention on object, see how that feels in your body, pull it back on subject, notice how that feels, and your logical, rational mind is going to start to draw some conclusions. It's like, it feels better when I stay on me than when I get on you. And so by staying on the self, we are capable of then using the nuances that are happening in the body. When someone is in the doorway that does pull you off center, it is because of a lack of circuits running strong and robustly here. They're weak enough relative to the potency that you're evolving into. They're weak enough to be pulled off because you've not yet embodied the things that you're realizing and the things you are awakening to. So we can have these revelations and have a beautiful understanding about the workings of the cosmos and how big and important we are in the big picture. But if we don't embody it, we go right on to object as soon as object enters the doorway. And so we want to come back here and come back onto subject and then ask a beautiful question. Instead of asking, why do you do the things that you do that upset me so much? Or even, why do I get so affected by you? And then get in my head and try to figure out my history and where that came from in my story. There's a faster way to get to the resolve. And that is to ask a better question. Just lay all that down and drop in and say, where in my body can I feel the effect of this? Where in my body could I build some circuitry to be able to sustain myself on the self, no matter who comes to my door? And so your mind is going to answer that question instantly. As soon as you ask, the mind is going to go to the throat, or it's going to go to the chest, or it's going to go to the gut, or it's going to go low in the spine, or right into the center of your head, or somewhere. It's going to go somewhere. And if someone can, and they can, teach themselves to trust that, and go there, follow it, follow the breadcrumbs, if you will, follow the messaging, follow the glimmer of an image that took you somewhere, and go in there and give it a hug. Hug it on the inside, because if you'll gently squeeze the musculature on that inner place in the body, it begins to gather robustly energies right there. And it gathers enough photons, or these tiny packets of energy, that the sensory nervous system can start to pick up on it and say, hey, something's going on in this place. I don't even know this place. I never go this place. And there's something going on there. And as the sensory nervous system starts to pick up on it, it starts to reference it, and it starts to create a feedback loop based on how I'm doing with familiarizing myself with that area. Because the subconscious mind is always trying to find familiarity, because it equates it with safety. So it's like, I don't know what this is, but I've seen it before. We're okay. That's kind of how it works, right? So we want to create an awareness inside the body in a place where we've not been aware before. And we know that we haven't been aware there, because if we were aware in all of these parts of us, all of these energy centers and levels of consciousness, if we were awake and integrated in all of them, anyone could come to the door, and we would look and smile. And we would say, oh, excellent. Wonderful to see you today. Because we're not reactive. The only reason we're reactive is if there's a part of us that isn't firing on all of its cylinders yet. And so it perceives some particular energies as a threat. Based on story, based on history, you bet. But what really matters is this now moment and what we do with it. So I work with the raw energy instead of working with the story and the history and all of that. So it heals traumas without us having to understand where the trauma began, or it heals ancestral issues without us having to remember what they were or even come to know what they were, because if we build the circuitry, they don't exist anymore. The story doesn't exist anymore when the circuits are in place. So I'll stop there and see where you want to go with it.
I love it. I mean, we find with the voice, we're inviting people to come to feel the resonance of their voice. So in a way, it's also to land those photons, like you said, or to become more aware of how sound travels through their cells. And we find that, and you said the belly first, and we find that the belly is a place that people are not aware. So we get them to breathe in, but also to sound into and from behind the navel. And then also a place where so many people we find are not aware is the pelvis, or even the, below the pelvis and the perineum. And by pushing or pulling on that area, we get to kind of free up all of this energy, this voice, this freedom, this playfulness, this creativity. I keep thinking of Elvis and how, his movement and awareness down there was just so exciting to the world.
And triggering to the world. Amazingly, you spoke about like if there's something in that particular system that is like drawn outward, that there's something there for you to work on, right? So I think we've seen it on a global scale. I mean, it's so powerful what you're saying.
Do you have any wisdom around that area, the perineum, the pelvis? I actually remember being at a Year of Miracles and hearing you refer to it, but we weren't there to hear the teaching around it. But do you have any wisdom or a little practice or something that can get people into their?
Yeah.
Yes, I happen to have another image. Great conversation. Okay, so these are some anchor points that we can start to work with, and this is the one you're speaking about in the pelvic floor. And there's one behind the heart, right between the shoulder blades that we use. One, of course, in the throat, where we're wanting people to feel and hear their own breath happening, to feel that reverberation, because something I'll share in a moment. And then there's one here by rolling your eyes up. It brings us into this general area of creativity. It's called the cave of Brahma in Hinduism, where our true creatorship spurs from. And it's above the primitive brain, but we have to get above the primitive brain authentically if we really ever want to illuminate ourselves in this way. So this all came from my embodiment practices after my big illumination and wanting to know, how do I get in my body with what I just had? How do I get here? How do I bring it here? And I had to do this. So what these do from the other angle is this. They align us straight in that central channel. And the most important one, interestingly, is right here. Because we never get from here to here and live while we're suffering or victimized or seeing the world as cruel or bigger than us, or if we're disempowered. And the way to become empowered is to draw ourselves down into the body and anchor it. And so what we're doing here is a process called Mula Bandha, and it's one of the anchor points that are elicited from the Bandha system, which in Eastern culture, it was how to regulate the breath and how to regulate the energy. It's actually how to regulate this soulful presence by use of moving energy with the breath and the concentration and muscle contraction. So we're kind of bringing it together. So I liken this to like tethering ourselves in the pelvic floor. And that pelvic bowl exercise is called Mula Bandha. It's sort of like a Kegel exercise, but it's contracting the muscles in the perineal floor and ultimately kind of lifting them up. So it's sort of like, I describe it this way to people and it works. Okay. So it's sort of like if you were going to the bathroom and you had to stop the stream instantly, you would contract certain muscles to get that job done. Right. All right. So you contract those muscles, and I invite people to squeeze it with everything they've got. Like just give it a squeeze so you can find your way into that part of your body that just is oblivious to us, most of the time. And then squeeze it with everything you have, and then kind of relax it by 1/2. And right about there is a great place to practice and work with it. And then relax it by 1/2 again right now. And there's a tone there. There's a tone that is enlivened, but it's not contracted. So it's just enough so that it's like if somebody put their hand on your shoulder, you'd know they're there. They're not giving you a big squeeze. They're just, I'm here. It's sort of that kind of sensation that we want to deliver into this aspect of our consciousness in the pelvic floor. And so I have them contract that and kind of raise it up, because when we lift it up on the inside, and maybe you can't do that right away when people that are watching are first starting to try to work with this, it may feel really clunky, and that's okay. Just keep clunking along, and pretty soon it starts to streamline, and you start to actually feel like, oh, I got this. And you kind of lift it up. And in order to lift it up, it's sort of like you would reach up to your lungs and pull them down, and it gives you the upliftment of this pelvic floor. And by doing that, it rolls the heart open. And so now we have 2 anchor points in place. We have Mula Bandha at the root. The root lock is what Mula Bandha means. It means root lock. So we're anchoring our consciousness at the root of the body. We're pulling down on the lungs, or we're rolling our shoulders up and back and down, kind of squeezing the blades together, but connect that action with lifting up the pelvic floor. When we do that, boom, the solar plexus is now wide open as well, which is also extraordinarily valuable when it comes to really trying to change our identity from a personality to a soulful self. All right. So then we can roll our eyes up, and we feel the muscle activity behind the eyes. So right there, you're right in the area of the pineal, inside the cave of Brahma. This is where we truly have access to the infinite. And then if we relaxed all that, but we came and just focused on the throat for a moment, just squeezing the throat just enough, like an ujjayi breathing, just the sound so that you could hear your own breath moving through. Yeah. By being able to hear the breath, we can place where to find this channel, because the channel is where we want to be living from. It's a concentration of this essence, this soulful presence. It's a concentration of the true self, is this Sushumna, this central channel. And so by being in these 4 anchor points at the same time and breathing up and down that central channel, we have a real opportunity to integrate the various energy centers, which are comprised of different levels of consciousness. And that's the key. Different parts of our wholeness are in each of these layers of our being. And so we begin an integrative process. So we can just do this for a second. It just takes a second to do. Let's just squeeze these muscles in the pelvic floor, okay? As if you were going to the bathroom and you had to stop the stream instantly, you would squeeze these muscles. And now just try to gently lift them up. Just gently, just a little. And maybe for some of the viewers, it's, all you can do is to find these muscles you're talking about. That's completely fine. And now let's roll the shoulders up and back and down. Squeeze them gently together, drop them down the spine, and then take a belly breath right in between these 2 points that we're working with. So we've got this Mula Bandha in place. We're squeezing the blades and dropping them down, and now take a belly breath. And it starts to create an open vessel in there. That openness inside the system is what we want to be able to experience because of the love that can cultivate there, ultimately. Right? So we're breathing in and out. And then just gently roll the eyes upward so that you can feel the activity behind the eyes. And now let's take a breath up from the earth, from deep in the earth. Breathe up into the belly and try to keep contracting those muscles. They may release and then contract them again, but just keep working with keeping them contracted into the belly. And you're squeezing the blades and you're rolling the eyes up. And now we're going to exhale from the belly up through the solar plexus, through the heart, up through the throat, up through the center of the brain, and exhale out the top of the head. And then let's inhale from overhead right down into the center of the brain, behind your eyes, through the throat, through the chest, all the way to the belly. Squeeze those blades. Now squeeze Mula Bandha, squeeze those pelvic floor muscles, and exhale right through the contraction into the earth. And inhale up from the earth again, right into the belly. Squeeze the blades, roll your eyes up. And exhale up through the heart, through the throat. Constrict the throat just a little so you can feel this breath on its way through. Exhale behind the eyes and up and out the crown. Formulating a central channel with little packets of consciousness. Inhale from overhead, right behind the eyes, through the throat, to the chest, all the way to the belly. Bring it down below the diaphragm, into behind the navel. Squeeze those pelvic floor muscles, Mula Bandha, and exhale to the earth. Inhale up from the earth back into the belly. Let it be big, deep, and rich. And then just exhale. So we could do that over and over and over again. And what happens is it begins to alter how the thinking mind is operating. It stops the thinking mind. As soon as these anchor points become familiar, it becomes a natural process that the body is following, because that energy is flowing in that pattern all the time. And what we're doing right now is we're pumping, we're priming the pump right here. This is what makes the whole thing happen and happen until it projects that movie out in front of us. And so by doing that, we become aligned and familiar with living in this deep core central channel. It's an anchoring way to stay on self and keep from going on to object, onto other. And it's a valuable thing for you to do every day so that you become grounded and integrated. And then when something does pull you off core, off center, you ask a brighter question: where in my body could I build the circuits that I don't slip out just because this particular energy showed up? And so my mind will go here or here or here or here. It will go somewhere. And this is a basis, a very foundational piece of working with the energy codes in terms of embodiment, in terms of figuring out specifically where and how to learn to live inside the body. And so if you ask the question, where could I build the circuits? And your mind goes maybe to your gut. So you hug on the inside, you follow that guidance right into the gut. You go to wherever the knot is coming from, where the interference is originating. You go there. And when you do, what gets to happen is you sit down and you breathe. You sit down right there inside of that space that you've been guided to. And you sit there and breathe until you feel something shift. And it will shift like a deepening, a softening, an opening, a warming. Something will happen in the area. And then take that central channel breath with this newly discovered part of you, as if you're spreading the good news through the whole channel that is designed to be infusing into all parts of our consciousness. And it acts as an activator, an initiator, a stimulator to this whole, full, true, soulful self to begin embodying fully.
Oh, wow. So beautiful. I'm so curious how you felt. As soon as I opened my eyes after that short exercise, I noticed more light in my vision. Like it was just a brightness of light. That
will always say that the room got brighter, or they see this misty substance between them and the screen they're looking at, or they look around the room and there's this it feels more ethereal, more mystical oftentimes. And that's because we're dialing into that realm, that version of reality. And the more centered and grounded we become, the more we can see through these veils and see what is actually truly happening. So we don't become reactive based on personality and the dull use of our five senses the way that we were trained to use them. There's so much more available to us. We've just never been taught, never been shown. So that's what I discovered for myself over that 10-year period after 2000, when these things started happening with me. And so then I put that together, and it became the energy codes, a codified way of approaching this and working with it, because my patients were getting better. I knew that I was onto something. I had no idea the ramifications of what it would bring, but it has it has been something that has helped millions of people around the world in the last 20 years of working with these things in this way and healing on every level in their lives, from physical ailments and issues to emotional issues to psychological, challenges to mental obsessiveness and all of the things that come that we ultimately call a crisis of some sort are remedied because we've come home to ourselves. And you guys know about that. That's what you're bringing. And so. Yeah, it's
so you and you are singing. There's this what an incredible embodied voice practice. I had the same experience. I just so much brightness. I don't know the last time I've seen so much light. Yeah. And I love that you're talking about to not pee. We call it to pee or not to pee is not a question; it's a choice. To push or pull on the Kegel is part of that triangulation, that pyramid of power within the whole body instrument. So there's so many crossovers there. I loved how you talked about like shutting off the P supply, but then backing off half and then letting that lift. I thought that was just really beautiful. To me, it felt a little bit like positioning the fishing hook in this beautiful way and then just lifting it up. Like it felt like you talked about kind of anchoring, and that's exactly what an anchor does. It's not just the weight of an anchor, it's the way in which an anchor hooks up and upon braces, something, allows something to fall into harmonious cognition. There's a cognition there within the mechanism of this experience, and I really felt it. And then the other thing that was really fascinating was how what you led us in, not only did it anchor up and create cognition in the power center, but then as we lifted and opened back, it created this really wide space for diaphragmatic breathing, which generally we do a lot of work with people lower than that because there's been so much trauma and lack of homeness in the low belly, the fat and happy belly, courage, conviction, worth, desperation, vulnerability. There's something about the space though when that diaphragm opened. And we find in the diaphragmatic area, it's that connection to the creative compass, right? It's that connection to yeah or nah. And we've been sort of studying, and this is now going to turn into a question, but so much of what you're talking about is landing in human form, but being completely and utterly resourced by creation. And that is the creative process, right? We've given it style, call it be creative. Of course, we're all from creation. We've noticed that in the diaphragm, it goes from an open yes to a closed valve no. What's your experience there in the diaphragm as an energy code?
Completely. So what I am wanting people to do there is to create the space above it and below it so that the diaphragm and the solar plexus, which is so, intricately related, have the felt sense of safety, of being held, that the energies around it are stable and the focus is coming straight into this area and allowing it to release. And as it releases, it literally dissolves the veil between our wisdom and our identity and love. It starts to blend them together so that when personal power and personal identity and wisdom and love are merging, we have now a new recipe. Now we're seated as an entirely different individual. We're drawing upon ancient wisdom, eternal wisdom. There are 11 billion bits of information bombarding us from the cosmos every millisecond. That's what that funnel becoming the channel coming in. It's coming in at the pace of 11 billion bits of information every millisecond. That's a lot. It's really fast. It's like constant. And so what we have to realize is that we're not separate from that. Just become that which is flowing through. And if we think of it in this way, the diaphragm celebrates by opening. It's like opening and allowing something greater to be running the show here than a separated solar plexus that's isolated as a separate self and a separate identity that's trying to survive these circumstances. And so when we build this vessel in such a way that these ingredients get to amalgamate, they get to alchemize, now we're cooking with gas. Now we're different and we're in a different reality in this moment. when those energies get to combine. And so the yes is definitely the openness at this level. And the no is it just withholds. And it's interesting because the personality can drive that we shut down into no more often than we really need to. But we have to listen in a step-by-step process if we want the personality to surrender. It has to have a trusted relationship. And so even if the personality is driving the no, and we don't mean to, we're just open and receiving, is it a yes or is it a no? When we are in the no, our personality, the layers of our personality are affecting why it's a no. Because if all of our circuits were in place, there would be no. There is only a yes. And the way that becomes true is we're turning things into yeses. We're transmuting them into good. We're taking dissonant energies and generating coherent, harmonious energies because we say so, because we have the power to do that when we're really identified as this presence itself, not tapping into the presence, not listening to the presence, but being that. I call it this quantum flip. By being that presence, we know that eventually this no is going to become a yes. It's sort of a yes and. It's yes and we're going to do this.
Love that. Yes, so creative.
It's so great.
That's beautiful. Yeah, that is big for us. What would you say is the role of the voice in the energy codes, or how you see it playing out in this projected movie, perhaps, or in the call to be embodied?
I think that, people can be told to relax your shoulders and relax your spine and open your hips and relax your jaw. And that is a way that we can facilitate the opening of the gateway that we are, or this instrument as you're referring to it. And so also toning is another way that we can open the gateway. Speaking our truth is another way that we can open the gateway, especially if it's challenging, especially if we can remain vulnerable enough to say, I don't really know how to say this, and I really hope that it doesn't cause a problem, but I want you to know that I'm coming from a place of love and I respect you, and here, blah, and then you say it. It comes with ease and grace, at least more ease and grace, and it starts to build the circuitry of authenticity. It starts to allow transparency to be safe to the subconscious mind, because the subconscious mind is constantly recording things that turn out good and things that don't turn out so good, things that turn out easy and things that are hard, and so that it can bank that and make decisions based on that information in the future. So we want to give it evidence that it's safe to speak, that it's safe to open, that it's safe to reveal and to just be you. And it doesn't have a lot of evidence doing that because we've spent our lives not doing that, because we got shut down early on for doing that. And so, we drop in, create a false version of ourselves that's constantly editing and auditing and trying to say and do and be the right thing instead of the real thing. And consequently, we end up in trouble, right, in some form. So I would say that the voice is a grand way of facilitating the opening of the instrument. The work that I do is also interested in allowing that the tone that we're emitting, and which is a voice, even if we speak nothing, we're voicing all the time. If you've, for those that are watching, if you've ever walked into the room or had someone walk into the room and you hear them, even though they haven't said a word, you hear where they're coming from. You feel what's going on inside of that. And you either want to go away or you want to lean in, but you hear them. You hear them even though their lips haven't parted yet. Nothing has come out except that we're emitting and emanating on so many other levels constantly. So we're voicing always, always, always. So I feel that when someone can learn to use their tone, their ability to hear and get feedback and feel more free when they're letting energies move through their body, it gives them feedback on how they're doing at allowing themselves to be this cosmic creative essence that is pulling itself and compressing itself into form and becoming a human system and projecting itself into the physical world. So it's a beautiful feedback mechanism, as well as a modulating method of transformation. So it can operate as the medicine at the same time that it's providing the feedback for how we're doing on the project that we're in. So just by hearing ourselves and noticing that it doesn't sound very good to our ear, our trained ear, and allowing ourselves to reveal this sound anyway, is doing so many things all at once. It's saying, I don't care what the ego says. This is me. Like it or lump it. Here I am. And when we start to step into that mode from a deeply sincere place, healing cannot not happen. The distortions cannot not be removed. The rectification happens in the field because we drop into our authenticity, and the system knows what to do then as soon as we stop interfering with it.
Gosh, yeah. Wow. Yes. It's been such a privilege to be with you. So there's like so many nerdy questions I have, and we will continue our friendship. I know it. Tell people the best way to come toward the energy codes with you. I know that there's another opportunity to do the energy codes with you coming up. We'd love for everyone to hear about that as well, and also how to just discover more of this incredible wisdom.
How can people come closer?
Oh, beautiful. Well, I'm so passionate about what I'm doing, and when this happened in my life, it started expressing in so many ways that I started speaking into all of those applications of this harmony that happens when we have the circuits in place and it's working, it's humming along. And so I have lots of different things that I do. I do a body awake yoga, which is teaching people how to anchor their consciousness in the core of the body while we're going through sacred geometries, putting the body in sacred geometry positions, which are yoga asanas, so that the energy can rush through more readily in concentrated ways. That's what yoga was truly meant to be, but it's gotten lost along the way. So I've combined that. But I have a year-long program that is called Live Awake, which I take people all the way through. It's a deeply immersive guidance for a year of processing and unpacking all of this and understanding who we are and moving into that experientially. I also teach remote healing courses to people and all sorts of things. So we have online presence. We have in-person events. We take Journey Awakes to sacred sites around the world to be in these sites where the energies are flourishing and the sound vibration and in the healing chambers of ancient Egypt and all around other sacred sites around the world allow us to be nurtured in discovering that version of ourselves that our personality longs for. And so also lots of complementary things. I have a YouTube channel. I have a monthly healing transmission that I do every month. If you come to the website, which is drsuemorter.com, drsuemorter.com, it's all right there. And we're currently updating the website as well. So there'll be a fresh version of it out in a couple of months. So keep checking back and seeing if there's something that feels supportive to you. And we have a team of people standing by all the time to help answer questions and help guide you in what might be applicable in whatever way.
Thank you so much.
Dr. Sue Morter, thank you so much for being willing to share so generously your wisdom and your passions. And we're so grateful. Please go and visit Dr. Sue's website and find out more about how you can come closer to her work.
So inspiring. Thank you for everything. We'll see you soon.
My great joy. Thank you guys for what you're doing.
So much.
Bringing people together in this way. It's so beautiful.
Thank you.
Always. Blessings and namaste.